From the Table Ready podcast. And in case you've never been here before, I'm the host. We do a bi weekly show. Um, and the things that we do on the show are going into Warhammer 40K. And the main topic that we're working on right now is we are working on the Combat Patrol to Crusade. And with that, we are constantly moving forward and evolving and going through all the factions. Now, I usually don't really do this part of it, but I am today. A friend of mine reminded me just last week that we are. I should be doing it more often, putting it out there. Please, if you're watching this, it helps everybody out if you like and subscribe and hit that notification bell, and that kind of gets everybody up and running, and it draws more attention to the podcast and to the show in general. And what I really and am talking about is, you know, we're all working as a community and working together and trying to do more things and trying to build this community for whatever it's worth. So, what I want you to do, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. I know I just said it, I'm going to say it again. If you're listening on audio, on podcasts, um, leave a review, leave a comment. It all helps get this more, to get more followers, more boost in the algorithm, all that good stuff. So please, just take 2 seconds out, put a like out there, put a subscribe if this is something that you like, and that's about it. I mean, just we're a big community. There's a lot of 40K creators out there and a lot of collaborators. And to be honest with you, I would love to reach out to any of those people, anybody that wants to come on, anybody that wants to talk about Warhammer 40K and their community, because our community is big and small, and sometimes it's just your friends in the basement, and other times it's, tournaments and Las Vegas Open and Atlantic City Open and stuff like that. But it all starts in the basements and the garages, and the friends playing together. So the other things that I do, I'm also on Lake Clan Legends. I play Dungeons and Dragons with my boys. We're trying to get into a little bit of Warhammer. So if you like Dungeons and Dragons, you like Warhammer, you just want to kind of see what I taught my kids how to play Dungeons and Dragons. I don't know if they'd admit that or not, but I really kind of got them into it and got them motivated, and they really have like a big story moving forward with that. Michael's going to be starting a new campaign, and he's essentially like a first-time DM, so he's kind of getting his, DM feet underneath him and doing some good stuff. Now, I'm also on Bounty Hunting Across the Galaxy with Todd and Ken, and that is once a month. We talk about all things Star Wars, specifically Mandalorian, and all kinds of Star Wars stuff. The last episode that we did was all about 4LOM and Zuckuss, and what an incredible show that was. We talked for over an hour on two characters that were only had a minute worth of screen time. Yeah, they went farther into it as far as getting into the comic books and stuff like that, and they have tons of backstory that wasn't in the movies, and we get into all that, and even some of the weird intricacies that happened between the two of them and some of the Star Wars legends and canon. And if you're interested in that, please go check it out. It was a ton of fun to create, and it's a ton of fun to put those episodes together as a Star Wars fan. So please go out, reach out, check me out, check us out, whatever you want to do. Jump on to these. We do most of them live, so if you jump on, you want to say hi, please, you're more than welcome to. But definitely put it out there. Get some, get your friends involved. And if you get a friend that's a Star Wars fan, but you're not, I won't hold it against you. Just get your friend to come over and watch us. But of course, we're not here for all that. What we're really here for is 40K. And of course, if you've seen the title for this episode, we are talking about the Thousand Sons. Thousand Sons are near and dear to my heart. They have a special place. Even when I first started playing, not when I first started playing 40K, because I was a big Eldar fan, but as I progressed into more armies of Warhammer, I got into more of, once I hit the Chaos Grab, which I think everybody kind of goes into. Once I got that Chaos Grab, I leaned into the Thousand Sons, and what I never turned back. I mean, those Rubric Marines are just such, even in the old days of second edition, they were such cool and interesting models. And to have them as a part of my Chaos Marine army was essential, for lack of a better word. They were essential. Now, I ran Khorne Berserkers. I ran a very fast-paced Chaos army when I had one. I didn't play it a lot because, to be honest with you, I kind of got rolling with it and I dropped it for other things. But I do still have some old models. I have an old Khorne World Eaters, which is now more of a World Bearers Sorcerer. Back from second edition. I still have it on my shelf back here. Again, but we're here for Thousand Sons, and we're here for Combat Patrol to Crusade. If you don't know what's in the Combat Patrol for the Thousand Sons at this point, it is the Demon Prince. It's a Zangor Shaman. There's 10 Rubric Marines, and then 3 of those Zangor Enlightened. There's enough stuff in that to do either of the Zangor Enlightened, whether it's the great bows or the spears. And I'm going to tell you all my options as we move forward here. But I did want to mention that this is a fairly new Combat Patrol. It's does have some gorgeous models if you're interested in that, in Thousand Sons, or even Chaos in general. It really has some just plain amazing models. That new Demon Prince, I could not be happier with the way that looks, especially with all the Tzeentchian parts that are on it. The Zangor Shaman and the Enlightened, those are really cool too. And the Rubric Marines, they're still the stock Rubric Marines, but that model from when they redid those were such a beautiful add-on for the Thousand Sons when they kind of gave them their own codex, their own book. So let's go into this, because the way that I always start these, what my intention is that we're going to go from the Combat Patrol itself, and we're going to go up to a Crusade level. So in order to start a Crusade, you're going to start at 1,000 points. That's what the number we're looking for here. So we are going to start with that Demon Prince. Just for fun, I went with the normal Demon Prince. You can go with the other one, the one with the wings. It doesn't matter too much. The reason that I went for that one is his abilities, which is, I'm just going to pull it up here for a second. He does get that if he's within, he gets the Lone Operative, which definitely makes him more resilient on the battlefield. And then while a friendly infantry unit, within 6 inches, those models get stealth. So, and of course, he does give that bonus to the Cabal of Sorcerers, which is the Thousand Suns rule. He still has all the same abilities and ideas that go with that winged, whether you go with the winged or the one on foot. So that's why I did that. Just for argument's sake, I'm going to make him my warlord because he's such a cool big piece to this puzzle. So, and of course, the next thing is that Zangor Shaman. He is just a force multiplier. He works well with all the units, and of course, he goes incredibly well with those Zangor Enlightened, or the Zangor if you prefer. I mean, either which way, it works. It works out either way. So I do like the unit. It does give them +1 to the hit roll for the unit that he's in. They do have a 5-up invulnerable save. He's just a good force multiplier. For my crusade, I would put him with those enlightened most of the time, just to kind of keep the same speed, same resiliency, same. They work out the same. Now, the Rubric Marines, I'm going to talk a little bit about these guys because I think they're important. There's 2 ways that you can equip the Rubric Marines. They can have the Inferno Bolt Guns, which, what an incredible upgrade that is for those Inferno Bolt Guns. They are the typical 2 shots, hits on a 3 or better, strength 4, -2 AP with 1 damage. That's fantastic. The other option, of course, would be the Warp Flamers, which they're a die 6 shots, only half the range, but -1 AP, same strength, 4 strength, and 1 damage as well. And of course, it's a flamer, so it gets ignore cover and torrent. For me, I would just run the bolt guns if that was the only squad that I was going to have. So when you're building your combat patrol, I would probably just build them as bolt guns. Of course, put that Soul Reaper cannon in there. Of course, put that Icon of Flamer in there because you're going to want those. And then, of course, the last thing is, of course, those Zangor Enlightened. And, of course, my choice for the Zangor Enlightened would be to go with the Great Bows. I just like the fact that they have that kind of range. 30-inch range, 2 attacks, 4 or better, strength 5, -2 AP with 2 damage. I mean, they're technically like Marine killers. They're actually really good at what they do. They do ignore cover, which is fantastic. They do have lethal hits on top of it. And of course, they also have precision. So if you want to take out that character before you take out the rest of the squad, hey, go for it. That's what they're there for. So, I mean, even you're only going to have a 3-man squad, so it's only 6 shots, but 6 shots with ignore cover, lethal hits, and precision, that's a good way to get rid of characters. They also do have their special rule. Oh, well, they do also have an invulnerable save. Let me add that in there. But they also have that once per turn when an enemy moves within 9 inches of them, whether it's a normal move, an advance, a fallback move, if it's not within engagement unit, you can move them a die 6 inches. So you can kind of shift them around and make them do the things that you want them to do, so they don't get caught in close combat, because they're not great in close combat. 2 attacks, strength 4, 1 damage. They're kind of weak. So you don't really want these guys getting caught close combat. You want to try to use that, what was the name of that? Malign Trickery ability to the best of your ability. So that's the combat patrol. Okay, any questions so far? Okay, I didn't think so. So what we're going to do is talk about what I would add into that. And of course, you already have 2 characters. And of course, before I even get any further down the line, just because I really enjoy the detachment, I would probably run these under the Rubric Phalanx. and that does give you a lot of play. Not only do you just have the all is dust rule, which each time an attack with an unmodified damage characteristic of 1 is allocated to the Rubrique, they get a +1 to their armor save. They do have some pretty decent stratagems. Okay, so I'm not going to get over involved, because look, if you're going to be playing it, you're going to pick the detachment that you want to play, and I'm going to pick the one that I like. But I'm really fond of that Rubrique phalanx. So what the first thing that I would add is another squad of Rubric Marines, and like I said initially, if you're going to put those first Rubrique with bolt guns, I'm going to take the other ones as flamers, just so I have an offensive group and I have a defensive group, and I can kind of make them work back and forth however I need them. Or, I mean, warp flamers with a Soul Reaper cannon, they're really not all that bad to move forward and just douse somebody in flames. So you're not going to do a ton of damage, but you are going to do significant damage because you don't need to roll the hit with any of those things. Now, the next thing that I would also add with that is an Exalted Sorcerer, and I would probably add him in with the first group of Rubric Marines. And of course, the reason for that is A, he gets the Rebind Rubrique rule. B, he's got a invulnerable save. And C, while he's with the unit, they get +1 to the hit roll. Not useful with the flamers, very useful with the bolters. So, and then of course he gets the Arcane Shield as well, so everybody in his unit gets a 4-up invulnerable save. So that makes that whole squad very tanky. And of course, then you get all your Cabal rituals as well. Not even going to move any farther. That is just such an amazing character to put with that squad. You know, so now that we got that, we got our two Rubric Marine squads. I keep wanting to say Rubrique, even though I'm just talking about Rubric Marines. Now that we got our two Rubric Marine squads, and you know, it's hard because I would really like to lean into another squad. But what I decided instead is to throw 10 Zangors in there. That kind of brings that Zangor feel back to, you know, you don't have these enlightened flying around, taking out targets. You're also, now you got a 10-man Zangor squad, and I just run them with the Zangor blades. I know you can kind of mix them up and do whatever. The Zangor blades, 2 attacks, 4 better, strength 5. They're nothing special, not really. But the pistol and chainsword, I mean, it's really not much of a difference. It's one more attack, but less strength. Auto pistol does give you a shot. I could see it, but to be honest with you, when I got my Zangors, I didn't have the pistols and chainswords, so I just went with the blades. Take the Herd Banner, take the Brayhorn. The Brayhorn gives you rerolls to advance and charge. The Herd Banner improves your OC. You don't have to, but you know what? It's worth it just to take them, and you never know when that one extra OC gets you over the top of one of your enemies. So that's a nice little squad to keep around. That also gives you an option as to where to put that shaman if you want to put them in with the Zangors instead of the Enlightened. Again, I like the shaman with the Enlightened just because of their mobility and how they work together. So the last thing for this, and this is another thing that I kind of fight with, especially at 1,000 points. The last thing that I put in was the Mutalith Vortex Beast. Look, this is kind of a cool model. The hardest part about this thing right now is it's incredibly hard to find. If you can find it, though, This is an incredible model. Okay. And I should have grabbed that one. I didn't grab it. But anyway, um, what it is, it's a creature that came out of fantasy. You could make it out of the Mutilix Vortex Beast. It could also be a Slaughter Beast for Khorne. And I think there was a third option, but it's way back in the histories at this point, and it doesn't really matter anyway. Um, but this Mutilith Vortex Beast, what this thing does is it is just a force multiplier for your entire army. On top of that, it has amazing damage potential and incredible survivability, especially at 1,000 points. Like, it's almost unfair. So, just to kind of bring up some of the things that it does, of course, it does have a ranged weapon. Shocker, most things do. That big swirling vortex that's on its back is actually a gun for it. It does 3 different types of attacks. This thing also does move 10 inches, 10 toughness, 13 wounds. So it's difficult to shift. It does only have a 4 save, but it does have a 5 up invulnerable save. The Warp Vortex, you can do a Blast, a Beam, or a Torrent. Okay, and I'm going to go through these in the way that I typically use them, or from I don't use to what I use more. So I don't use the Torrent a lot. It is a good weapon. It is a good choice, but it's only 18-inch range. It's 2d6 attacks, and of course it ignores cover and it's Torrent, so it's a big flamethrower. Strength 6, -1, 1 damage. So you have 2 to 12 attacks, and this is I'm going to get into explaining why I don't use this that much. This is like the base level attack. If you were fighting someone like Guardsmen or Termagants or something like that, it's probably a fantastic weapon. It will clear a lot of stuff out. The other side, and the one that I like to use more, is the Blast. So, of course, it does have the Blast keyword. So if you're shooting at something that has more units, it's like 10, 15, 20 models in the squad, you're going to get more shots. You do get a die 6 plus 3, so that does mean you get 4 to 9 attacks instead of 2 die 12. So it is less attacks. You do have to roll to hit, but it's a 3 up, so it's pretty reliable. But your strength goes up from a 6 to a 9. Your AP goes from a -1 to a -2, and it also goes to 2 damage. This is the one that I lean on probably more than anything. And the only reason I did this one in between is because the Torrent to the Blast, they're too similar to just be like, oh, well, why wouldn't you use the Torrent? Because the Blast is just that much better, in my opinion, in most scenarios. If you're fighting Marine types, if you're fighting anything with a decent armor save, you're going to want that -2 over the -1. Unless you're fighting something small, Guardsmen, Termagants, Eldar, you're going to want that 2 damage. I mean, why mess around with it? The damage potential, if you got all of them, a Torrent's going to hurt 12 guys. 12, it's going to do 12 damage. If you max out the Vortex, the Blast, you're doing 18 damage. Yeah, that's 100% hit, 100% wound. Not likely to happen. I know it's not likely to happen, but it could happen. Now, the other option, the last option, is the beam option. And, of course, that gives you more range. It's 36-inch, but it's only 1 attack. That's the killer on this thing. If it was sustained hits, if it was 2 shots, and I understand why it's on, because listen, all right, this is why it's 1 shot, because the 3 are better to hit. It's strength 18. It's AP -3, and it does a die 6 plus 6 damage. Yes, that's right. It does 7 to 12 damage. And on top of that, if that wasn't enough, it does devastating wounds. Devastating wounds is just an extra for me, because at that point, I mean, you're talking, you need to roll. You're rolling one attack. It's got to roll. You got to roll the hit, and then when you go to roll the wound, you got to roll a 6. That's the only way you're getting devastating wounds, and then you're getting your damage without an armor save. But you're already -3. Most things don't have a save, or if they do, it's a 6 at that point. Maybe a 5 if you're fighting, shooting at Terminators or something like that. So it is interesting. It is something that you can fall back on if you need to take out a tank, if you need to take out a gladiator or some kind of big monster, or you're fighting knights or something like that. It is a good option, but I don't think it's the best option. I tend to lean into the blast over everything else. So then on top of that, okay, so you're shooting this thing. By the way, I forgot to mention, at the end of your movement phase, for every unit that's within 6 inches, you roll a die 6, and you cause mortal wounds. Oh yeah, and you cause a battle shock test. Not a super big deal, but it can change the tide of the battle. It can 100% change the tide of the battle. I've used it so many times where it's just like, oh, by the way, roll a battle shock. Oh, you failed. Oh, I just got that objective from you. After this big monster with an OC4, I didn't expect it. So many times I didn't expect it. And then the other thing that it does have, when this thing's within 6 inches of one of your 1,000 Sun Psychers, you get a +1 to your psychic tests for your Channel the Warp. So whether you keep this back and lean it towards where your other Psychers are, or you charge this thing forward and just be a nuisance with it, either way, it does a phenomenal job. And if you just swell your army forward, it also does an amazing job of just moving with your enemy and just supporting everything, between the mortal wounds that it does, the bonus to your psychic results, everything that it does. So yes, it's a big, scary, impressive model. It's going to take shots, but like I said, it's got toughness 10, 4-up save, 5-up invulnerable save. Oh yeah, did I forget to mention it's got feel no pain as well, just when you thought you could kick this thing. And scarily enough, it's not bad in close combat either. You either get the tentacled maul, which is, it's got a big body with tentacles coming out the front, which is almost like a sweep attack. It's got 15 attacks, hits on a 3 or better, strength 7, AP 0, 1 damage each. Not great, but you could also choose to do the claws, which is 5 attacks at strength 10, AP -2 with 3 damage each. I think that's where it kind of lays into what it's really good at. So this thing is like a linchpin for most of my 1,000 Suns armies. So I do really enjoy having that model on the table. I mean, besides the fact that unless you fought one of these things, you really don't know what you're up against until it shows up and you fight it. I like that for it's got good shock value. And trust me, it takes a ton of shots. But the best thing about that is if it's taking shots, your Demon Prince isn't taking shots, your Rubric Marine squads aren't taking shots, your Enlightened aren't taking shots, your Zangors aren't taking shots. Let them pump all the bullets into this big meaty thing, and if it goes down, you still have 830 points worth of 840 points, of miniatures on the table that they haven't been shooting at. So I think it's fantastic. So that's what I would do with my combat patrol moving up to a crusade. That's specifically where I would go. I do own all these models, so for me, this is not a stretch. I could easily play that. I've started collecting, and this is just my personal side note. I started collecting Thousand Suns when they redid the Rubric Marines initially. I bought one box set, and I said, I'm going to paint these up because everybody says how hard they are to paint. And I'm going to try and figure out a system that I can make these things look good and not be a pain to paint. And to be honest with you, I found it, and it works great. So I don't have a Rubric Marine sitting right here, but I do have my Helldrake. So I'm just going to show you this here. So what I do is when I did my Helldrake, I primed this thing and painted it initially. The color that I used it's called Brand New Penny. Okay, so even though it looks a little more like a worn penny at this point, the color that I used was a Brand New Penny. So, and then I sprayed the entire thing. Of course, this thing is a monster to paint. Okay. Just because there's so many overlapping pieces, I sub-assembled this thing, got it all together, all the pieces that I needed together. When I went to do the painting, like I said, sprayed the whole thing copper, Brand New Penny, filled in all the squares, all the little details with the blue, and then anywhere that I went over, I just used a wet brush and pulled the paint back off. Painted another cell, pulled it anywhere that I got paint over, just pulled it right back off the copper. So went through that and did the whole thing like that. And what an amazing accomplishment that I got out of that. It was so fun to paint instead of trying to do. Now I did the Hellbrute and I did that all by trim, and that was no fun. I did not enjoy any part of that. When I did this one, this was just an amazing accomplishment of painting that blue in all those little cells. And I had so much fun painting that thing. So now the other cool thing is I like doing conversions. So when I got my Mulith Vortex Beast, which I got as a gift, and most of my Thousand Suns army has been a gift. So I am just lucky because I had no real super intentions of playing a Thousand Suns army. I just wanted to collect some models in a Thousand Suns army. I have a full army to play with at this point, and still have. The nice thing is, I have one unit of miniatures to paint at this point. It is my closest to completion army that I own, and I have owned some of my armies for a very long time. But one of the things that I did do is when I got the Mulith Vortex Beast, because you could create different units from this monster, I actually stole some of the parts to do other models. So when I got a Mauler Fiend, I actually replaced the head of the Mauler Fiend with one of the heads, the one from the Slaughter Beast. So if I can get this to stay in focus here. So he has a custom head, and then there's still one left. There's still one left to do another one. So the reason that I have a Mauler Fiend, and you're probably like, well, with all the things that you could do, why pick a Mauler Fiend over a Forge Fiend? And the answer is because this guy is just scary enough that if you run him next to the Vortex Beast, people are concerned about what's going on. So whether you're, charging forward or just marching up, they both have the same speed. They're both just not just as tough, but they're both pretty tough. They're both scary when they get in close. And that is exactly what you want. You want your opponent to be thinking, okay, who am I shooting at? Because there's these big two scary things coming down the battlefield at me. What am I going to shoot at? What am I going to attack? What am I going to take down? Okay, whichever one, if they go after the Mutilith Vortex Beast, they now have a Mauler Fiend in their face. And in case you didn't know, a Mauler Fiend is toughness 10 again, 12 wounds, 3 up save, still has a 5 up invulnerable save. His bonus is he gets the Mauler Fists, which are 6 attacks at strength 14 with a -2 and a die 6 +1 damage. Plus, he gets those Lasher Tendrils attack as well for an extra 6 attacks at strength 7 -1 and 1 damage. So, and the nice thing is, if somebody decides to charge the Mutilith Vortex Beast, you can actually heroic intervention with the Mauler Fiend to get him in there too. So it's a fantastic way to get these models into combat and create a threat against your opponent. So they're not shooting at your Rubric Marines, they're not shooting at your occult terminators or whatever. And give them extra stuff to shoot at and try to take out. Because again, a Mauler Fiend is only 130 points, so he's not really that expensive, considering a Rubric Marine squad is 190 at 10 guys. And then, of course, once you move up to 2,000 points, and I'm going to show him off because I think he's such an amazing miniature, you have Magnus. And let me get him into frame properly. Hold him straight. He, again, is such an amazing miniature. I just wanted to paint him to prove that I could. And, again, he's such an amazing miniature. And throwing him in an army at 2,000 points he is a beast. So that's it for my rant. If you want to rehear the list before I get out of here, we do have from the Combat Patrol, the Demon Prince of Tzeentch, and I did mine without the wings for no other reason, just because I like his rules a little bit better. The Exalted Sorcerer, and I gave him the Lord of the Rubrique enhancement. The Zangor Shaman, again, he's the one that comes out of the box set. The two 10-man squads of Rubric Marines. This way there's no waste. I did one with Bolters, one with Warp Flamers, both of them with Soul Reapers and Icons, because free upgrades, Squad of Zangors, basically to do the work, the battlefield work, or, if you need to, just to take shots or, be a distraction. What I did mention or forgot to mention was they do have that ambushing hunters rule, which is nice because you can take them off the battlefield and put them back on the battlefield. So if you prefer the uppy downy thing, I think that's weird to say, but they do have that ability with the Zangors. So if they're in the backfield and you think they're going to get threatened, you can kind of pick them up and redeploy them. Do have the Zangor Enlighten that come in the Combat Patrol, and then of course adding that Mutilith Vortex Beast. And again, the caveat to that is I hope you can find one, because right now they've been kind of rare. So everything. That's the whole list at 990 points as it is right now. I hope you enjoyed this. Magnus did do nothing wrong. So, so if you enjoyed this, again, put a like on here, subscribe, leave a comment, all that good stuff. Because I had technical issues last week. I don't know why, but for some reason, I recorded the whole thing. It went to um, a scheduled instead of actually loading. Um, so if this is going to be recorded this week, this Thursday, I'm actually going to do double duty. So I'm going to get off here in like 2 minutes. We're going to finish this up. And then if you want to join me, I'm going to paint for a little bit and just chat and hang out. Um, that's something that I try to get on here every Thursday and do something. Again, computer issues aside, internet, blah. So that's about it for today. Again, I'm going to be on just a few minutes to paint. I got to basically pick up my stuff and move over where the paints are located and grab my stuff and stuff like that. But I'll be back in just a few minutes. It will have a new title, so it'll be a whole new thing. So hang tight. I'll be back in a little bit. Um, Thank you for watching. And this is Todd from Table Ready Painting. And we're here at Table Ready to help you to get you and your models table ready. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.